I love junk radios. I guess I'll make this my next project. This is a national NC-60 special. I think I got about $5 tied up in this one. And I don't know how bad a shape it's in. I just set it up on the bench. I haven't done anything else to it. It's filthy. A lot of dirt all around the front of it, and the knobs have turned that old chalky look. I think they'll clean up okay. Not a lot of scratches or anything on the cabinet. Some pretty bad ones right there. Some chips down here. Back of it, it's got its original back, and that looks good. So might be a pretty decent radio when it's done. I'm going to do something I almost never do. I usually don't even bother to plug these things in and see if they'll play. I just automatically take them apart and start recapping them because I'm going to do that anyway. But I think I'm going to plug this one up on the variac here and see if it'll play at all before I dig into it. Let's see what turns it on here. I don't know. Here we go. Volume control, so it's already on. Alright, let's start giving it a little voltage here and see what happens. Alright, we got 43 volts. It's drawing 0.15 amps. I'll let that set there a second. Alright, 62 volts, it's drawing 0.12 amps. I'll let it sit there and warm up a little bit. Still at 62 volts, and it's humming pretty loud. I think that's probably a filter cap problem, as loud as it's humming. So let's go a little bit more. 83 volts, 0.16 amps, so it don't look like anything's dead short. That sounds like filter cap problem, as loud as it's humming. Let's go a little bit more. (102 volts, 0.2 amps), so that's okay. Alright, let's leave it there a second. And it's got about a 2-foot piece of wire on it. And let's see, what band are we on? Let's go to the broadcast band, see if we can find anything here. Alright, so we're getting nothing but hum. So it's definitely a filter cap. Gonna have to be replaced here before we're gonna get anything, I think. But like I say, at 103 volts, 0.2 amps is not bad. I'm gonna go ahead and 119 volts, 0.23 amps. Okay, at least it's the audio section is definitely working, and I think this radio would play if we just had another filter cap in it, but it's going to be recapped anyway, so it doesn't make any difference. I'm extremely pleased with what I'm seeing. Underside of this chassis is just beautiful. Of course, it's copper plated, and all the wiring looks good, all the solder joints look good. I guess this is a factory job. I don't even know if these were ever offered in kit form or not, but most of the caps, at least half of them, are either these look like micros here. These are really like 220 picofarad, 47 picofarad, so they're in the RF circuit. And then you got a lot of ceramic disc. There are some papers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only 5. Look like only 5 caps I'll need to replace, other than this filter cap here. And the top of the chassis is just as nice, a little dirty, but everything's copper plated, and I don't know if anybody's ever even had this thing out of the cabinet. It doesn't look like it. I don't see anything that looks like it's been reworked or replaced. Everything is good shape. Well, I'm going to show you one of my stupid mistakes. Maybe somebody will remember this and won't make the same one. But I started the process of replacing this old electrolytic, and I just took my terminal strip and mounted it in the same place the original was mounted. And I went to great pains to scrape the paint off the chassis so it would have a good ground for the negative end of this electrolytic. And but the stupid part is, and I should have known, this is actually an AC DC arrangement. Doesn't have a power transformer, so therefore the negative lead, this electrolytic, does not go to chassis ground. Everything's separated from chassis ground with this 0.047 here. So I can't ground in negative terminal of this to the chassis. Now that I've gone to all this work of actually soldering 2 of the capacitors in, I'm not going to take all that apart. So what I found me was one of these scratched around my little insulator box, and this is a nice little military type insulator with a screw on both ends. So I'm going to take this off and use this to mount that terminal strip. It'll set my terminal strip up a little bit, but I've got plenty clearance here to the bottom of the radio. And that'll isolate that away from the chassis. Then I can run the ground lead right to, or the negative lead right to the negative, where all of these negatives of electrolytics are tied together. I solved the problem of the floating ground by putting that insulator, or insulating that terminal strip from chassis ground. So I'm ready to plug this thing in, and let's see if it does any better than it did on the first plug in. Well, it's playing. But that's my little internal broadcaster that I use to play my antique radios. I've got a long wire, about it's actually about 100-foot long wire outside hooked to it, and I'm not picking up anything on the other bands, not picking up even broadcast stations. Only reason I'm picking that one up is because it's such a strong signal here inside the house. So we got some sensitivity problems, and I'll have to delve into, I haven't tested the tubes yet. I'll delve into all of that and let's see if we can figure out what's going on. Well, I'm mostly pleased with this. It's picking up now on, this is on the band 2, which is 1.6 to 4.5 megahertz, and I'm getting good signals up here on 75, 80 meters. So it's doing pretty good, but there is a problem with this, I'll call it a beat frequency oscillator. I'm not sure it's working at all, and the other strange thing about it, if it picks up everything better with it on. I guess there's a little regeneration going on there, but when I turn it off, I get a loud hum. It still picks up signals, but I don't know what's going on with that. I've looked at the schematic and tried to figure that out. It's feedback. See, it goes away when I turn the beat frequency oscillator on. What they're doing here is they're feeding a little bit of signal really out of the cathode circuit of that first RF over to the mixer tube. It's just a gimmick, I guess you'd call it, just some wire wrapped around other wires to couple a signal. But something's going on with it. AM band, I don't have the knobs on because I've got them soaking, they were filthy. So AM band is good, and it's nighttime. I haven't tried the higher bands at night. They've been doing nothing in the daytime, but well, it's picking up carriers, so. So band 3 seems to be working. Let's try band 4. Yeah, so it's picking up signals. Sensitivity goes way down, as would be expected with this is really just an All-American 5 circuit, 12BE6, BA6, AB6, 50C5, and a 35W4 rectifier. So a typical All-American 5 circuit, but it's working. I've just got to figure out what's going on with this BFO. and why when I turn it off I get a loud hum. Front panel's cleaned up real nice. A lot of nicotine, and I don't have it all off. I doubt I'll ever will. It was just coated with nicotine. The outer cabinet, to make it look decent, I'm going to have to paint it. So I'll do that later. I'm trying to clean the knobs on this National NC-60. These are the filthiest knobs. I hope you can see those grooves there. They're caked with stuff, and normally I can soak them. In fact, I've soaked these for 2 days in Dawn dish liquid, and normally I can do that and brush them with a toothbrush and then put them in the microwave and microwave the can't think of the name of it, ultrasonic cleaner. Put it in the ultrasonic cleaner and they'll come out beautiful. But these are not moving. These have been in the cleaner, they've been in the ultrasonic cleaner, and it's still, the grooves are gummed. I can take my fingernail and it will clean it out. So toothbrush just didn't work, and what I've had to do is take a brass bristle brush, and that works great on them. That cleans them out real nice. I think it does dull them just a little bit, but on a light knob like this I don't think you'll notice it. I don't think I would try it on a black knob like the Hallicrafters shortwave receiver knobs that have got a lot of grooves in them. I think it would probably dull those too much. It would be noticeable. But I've done one on this radio. Let's see if I can get this over here, and it looks real nice. So I'm pleased with it. I've done the whole front of this radio. Took the panel off, cleaned behind the glass, cleaned the back panel. It's turning out real nice. But as I said before, the cases, the metal case is going to have to be repainted because I've tried to clean it and it's just not coming clean, and there are a lot of scratches and nicks on it. So we'll do that. Radio's playing good this morning. I cleaned that beautiful copper chassis, and it turned out great. Put a 3-prong plug on it. Well, I tried to align this receiver, and it just couldn't get it to do right. Even the 455 kilohertz IFs looked like the transformers wouldn't line up. I mean, I could screw them all the way in, and they would start to get a little rising signal, and then it would bottom out. And so then I tried, got it best I could, and I tried aligning the different bands, and they wouldn't track. You know, they were off 2 or 3, 4 megahertz on one end of the band. You tune the other end of the band, bring it back, and they just wouldn't track from one end of the band to the other. But the way those IFs were acting, I kind of suspected maybe silver migration, and the reason I couldn't tune those IFs like they should. So I took them out. Well, I took one out. I've done one, and all of you guys are probably familiar with this, but I took out the worst one, the one that would tune the least, and there's the little mica disc in there, and I don't know whether you can see it or not, but it's got black all around those elements, and I just got a feeling that that may be what it is. Although I was not getting any popping or thunder clashes, all the stuff normally associated, I think maybe these had gone a little too far, and the capacitors were actually shorted out. That's my suspect. So I drilled it out. These things got some of them are made different, but they got this little rivet in the bottom that holds the this plastic piece here, sandwiches that mica in between, and then there's two little arms that come out from those leads, and you got to cut those off so that when you put it back they don't touch each other, because now they don't have the mica in between them to separate them. Got to cut them off so they don't touch, and then I put the little plastic thing back in there and super glued everything together, keep it stable. So we're going to try one of them and see if it'll tune any better before we do the other one. One other thing that I did, I've got a little probe that I made that fits on my vacuum tube voltmeter. That's a grid dip meter. You feed a signal generator into it, and then there's another lead goes into the vacuum tube voltmeter. Actually I didn't use that one. I used a little grid dip meter that also works on the vacuum tube voltmeter. And you feed an RF signal into it, and you got a coil on the end of it. You put it close to this coil, and I run the thing from like 200 kilohertz up to 1,000, and I couldn't get a dip. So I'm thinking again that these little capacitors are actually shorted out. It'd be a very high resistance, so they won't show a dead short, but they're basically inoperative, and I'm hoping that's the reason these things weren't tuning. I did the first transformer, and it really did help the tuning, so I went ahead and took the second one out, and there's the little mica disc that came out of the second one. You can see that black all around the elements. So essentially the capacitors on this transformer were shorted out. This one's worse than the first one. You can see those two little pieces of metal that go to the legs, and the mica disc is sandwiched between them, so you got to cut those off so that they don't touch anymore, because you don't have a disc in between them to separate them. Otherwise you got a dead short across there. I've cut off one on this side, and I'm getting ready to cut the other one, so give you some idea what you got to do. The other thing you got to watch out for, if you look closely, you see that little fine wire. Actually, this leg or this terminal fell out, and that little fine wire, that's probably smaller than the human hair, it came loose, and it's so easy to break these little fine wires. I've broke them many times, and having to try to tack them back together, and it's not fun. There's 4 of them. 2 go to the upper transformer, 2 to the lower side of the transformer. You can see those are still connected. There's a shot of them cut off so they don't touch each other. Now I'll take some super glue and glue them down, because otherwise they kind of flop around in there. and I just put a drop of super glue on each one and let it dry. And then I'll put that little plastic cap that holds them down on top and super glue it and let them dry. Well, fixing that those IF transformers did the trick. I took those little discs out of there and replaced them with these micro caps. Both sides of this IF take about a 100, 120. I found most of the time these caps to fix these IF transformers run in right around 100. And so took those little discs out, and I think I showed you already this last one I did. This one was terrible. I mean, you can see all that black. And this one, actually what was going on here, if you look at it, there's a rivet goes down through that hole in the middle, and that silver migration was touching that rivet. The rivet's touching both sides, so there was really a high resistance short from the primary of the transformer to the secondary. But that fixed it, and but after I fixed it, turned the radio on, I couldn't get anything at all on the broadcast band, and it I put my little frequency counter on it, and the oscillator wasn't oscillating, and I traced that out, and probably messing around in this radio, I had disconnected a little fine wire right there that connects on that terminal. I broke it, and you know that wire is smaller than a human hair, but I was able to get a little black gob of solder on it and get it soldered back on that terminal, and that fixed that. So we got a working radio here now. This is let's see, this is band 3. That's around 7 megahertz. Not a very sensitive radio on the upper bands, but none of them are in this price range. So it's all working. I cleaned the case up. I'm going to put it back in the case like it is. There's a few nicks and scratches, but as I said, this is not a high-end radio, so no use going overboard. It's working now. And it's another one saved from the trash heap.